It is about 33 minutes past the hour of 8 o'clock. My name is Priva Elibaz and you're still watching Sunrise at Sea. In case you missed out on the content that we shared with you earlier on, be sure to catch up on our social media platforms. That is Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at CTV Uganda. Of course, if you're on the move, we are also streaming live on our website at www.ctv.co.ug/live. Well, right about now, it is time for our views where we basically talk about any and everything. Nothing is off limits at all. Of course, today won't be any different. The ladies and I will be deliberating on competence vis-a-vis diversity when it comes to hiring human resource. Now, lately, companies have been tasked to balance genders, races, and tribes in their work environment. And to be very honest, this has become the most considered element in modern human resource management. Of course, for some companies, this has worked so well for them as they've been able to create diplomatic ties and as such secure company deals just based off having an inclusive work environment. On the other hand, some companies are not too sold on this format. For example, law firms. They'll bluntly tell you that women in their 30s retire in the profession and decide to focus on their families. So they would rather prefer hiring men who can commit to a longer employment lifespan than have women who are going to leave at a certain point in time. Then we also have some companies who do not care. Are you fit for the job? Do you have the competence and the ability to handle the job? You will be hired. So today we are putting both on the spectrum. Is it diversity? Is it competence that works for you when it comes to hiring human resource? Today on the show, of course, I'm going to be deliberating about this with the ladies. That is Shivan, Aggie and Sarah. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
How are you?
We're excited.
I need some energy. I need some energy.
You wait behind the scenes, you will see.
I need some energy. Well, before I pick the ladies' mind on the topic of discussion today, allow me to define what inclusion is. Well, inclusion is the practice of providing everyone with equal access to opportunities and resources. Of course, inclusion efforts in the workplace help to give traditionally marginalized groups in society, like those based off on gender, race, and even those with physical and mental disabilities. It gives them a means to feel equal in the workplace. On the other hand, competence can be defined as a combination of skills, knowledge, attributes, and behaviors that enable an individual to perform a task and activity successfully on a given job. So ladies, the question that I'm posing today, should the standard of employment be based on diversity or competence?
Whew, that's a hard one, right? Right? Mm-hmm. One way or the other, we are all here because someone gave us a shot at something. So if for me, it would be, first of all, it would depend on the type of job. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are some jobs where you do not get to learn on the table. Somehow you need to enter the job market, guy. You know, you have a bit of practical. Like, I mean, no one wants to be operated on by a student doctor. Somehow you have to get into the profession when you have gone through all that training. If, say, you are a dentist, you know, there are just those jobs or those professions that are quite complex and they require a certain type of skill, knowledge, and manpower. However, in one way or the other, I mean, many of us, me myself, I am here today, or I have gone through, you know, my life journey, my work journey, my education journey, because someone took a chance on me. You know, it hasn't always been competence. Yet competence can get you where you are and can get you, you know, all the nice things in life. However, if someone did not believe in you, if someone did not have that trust in you, then you probably wouldn't be where you are today. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one to decide between competence, diversity, where you mentioned diversity is actually inclusion. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, we all want to be included in one or the other. You do not want to be left out of a gig because someone says you're not competent enough. Then the question would be, give me a shot. And you see, the people most times that we give shots at these things that we think are not competent do an amazing job.
They do exceedingly well.
Absolutely so. How do you tell? How do you tell?
Well, Aggie,
well, for me, honestly, I'm all about competence, to be honest. If you're hiring human resource, if you're hiring employees, you want people who are competent at the job. You want people who have the skills that you need. Shivan talked about, you know, being able to give people an opportunity. I mean, each one of us, like she mentioned earlier, we are where we are because somebody took a chance on us. I'm just re-echoing her words. But here's the thing. I believe in competence so much, but I want it to happen when you are already in the workspace. You understand? When you talk about inclusivity, I mean, we've seen situations where it's all about, in the recent past, we are seeing so many, especially children films, or even so many films. We were talking about Netflix the other day. There was an uproar about it, you know, having to include the LGBTQ community in literally everything. And they're doing it because they want to include everyone. And then you watch a film and you realize, okay, this person is actually not doing the job as good as it should be, which is detrimental to the film, which is detrimental to the work. While you are employing, you know, trying to include everyone in the space, at the end of the day, you want the job done, and you want it done well. You want people who will put in 100%, not because they have been given a chance to be there. But I think you talked about, especially the marginalized, groups. We're talking about the lame and all that. Now, I'm not saying that these people do not deserve a chance, but let it be a level ground where people are competing for the job.
But they're already disadvantaged.
Because look at this. Like I said, you want the job to be done. If I am Uwase and I am competent at my work, and maybe I'm actually really interested in the job and I'm competent, I have the skills, I have the experience, all of it. But you are bringing someone in the workspace at my expense. I'm losing out on the opportunity because you're trying to include someone, you understand, who is probably not as qualified, who is probably not, you know, as competent as I am. So it's yes.
If that job is not meant for you,
it's not about being meant for. That is what inclusivity is trying to do, especially in the workspace. They will leave out someone who is competent. They will leave someone who has the skills just to include, you know, everyone. And I think we are living in a woke world where everyone wants to be woke. I mean, everyone wants to be appreciated. People are very sensitive, especially on social media. Now, I don't want to, again, talk about the certain group that I've talked about, because they're the ones who have come out and talk about, we are not included here, we are not included here, we are not included here. How about you do not look at the fact that you are marginalized and look at the fact that I'm qualified for this, or I am doing this, not based on the fact that I am who I am, not based on the fact that I'm probably gay or something, but because I'm actually good at this job. Look at it from that point of view. That would be me. Honestly, it's all about competence than inclusivity.
I would first want to hear what Sarah has to say before I actually get to the point of you saying sometimes we don't have to pay at the expense of others who are maybe disabled or who are not, or who have a different sex, race, you know, all that stuff. Let's first see what Sarah has to say.
I think we get the idea of what inclusion is very differently. Women didn't get into the workforce until the early 1930s, and these were white women. Black women or colored women got into the workforce later in about the 1980s. Then let's talk about people with disabilities.
Yes.
Now let's talk about all the marginalized groups and when they were allowed to start accessing just basic human rights like education, a right to work, a right to have freedoms to do the things that everybody else should do as a human being. When we talk about inclusion in the workplace, we are talking about let's give more women the opportunity to come and prove that they can do the work because they want to. And when we give them the opportunity to come and work or do these things, I'm not just talking about women, I'm talking about people from minority races or people who are of a minority group in whatever community. Inclusion means allow these people to come and equip them with the skills. Because sometimes we're going to bank on the word competence, and yet you fail to realize that perhaps a person who is of non-disability has had the opportunity to go to school, while the person of a disability has been denied an education. So how do you start gauging and saying that, oh, because this person has an education and this one did not get, this person is more competent to do it? We're talking about competence, not qualification. Competence, the ability to do the job in the event you're given the chance to. So I think I am for inclusion. And when we talk about inclusion, give people the opportunity to learn if they are willing to learn, if they want to be here. Give them the opportunity to learn, because you never know that the person with the quote-unquote qualifications may not match up to the person who has not had the opportunity to even, say, get a basic education in the first place. So I am for inclusion, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, ability, regardless of what it is, I am all for inclusion. And I think workplaces should be a lot more open. And then from there, after they have given them they have gone through the probation period or training period, that is what probation is for. They're seeing how much you can do, and they're also equipping you with the skills to actually do the job better. A lot of workplaces here in Uganda do not take you through an orientation process. They don't take you through a training process. They just throw you in and they want you to deliver results. You get me?
Yes, I get what you're saying. Actually, to supplement on what Sarah just shared, Article 21 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda prohibits gender discrimination in general and enshrines the principle of equality before the law, regardless of sex, race, color, tribe, religion, political belief, or social and economic standing. Now, the question that I want to pose to you ladies, workplaces that have that inclusion and diversity are said to be safer, and they actually create a happier environment for their employees. Do you agree?
I do, because see, when you allow people from different walks of life or different areas of or sectors of community or society or the world to come together, there is a sharing of ideas. It is a lot more progressive. I understand that it can sometimes delay decision process making because everybody has a formula that has worked for them. But you see, also in workplaces, there have to be systems that can mitigate that. You understand, like say hierarchy in position, where there are people who have supervisors, then heads of department, then managers, all the way to the top. Things like that can mitigate that and streamline decision-making processes in a workplace. But I'm all for inclusion. Allow people to come in, because you see, at the end of the day, we have the mindset that how we live our lives is how everybody else lives their life. But it's good to also see that there's more ways to life than just yours. You get me? It makes you a lot more exposed. You get more educated. You understand just how different dynamics work in life. And so when you leave that workplace and you go, now imagine, you're working, say, for instance, here in Uganda at CTV, and now we have people from different races, religions, ethnic backgrounds, you know, people with disabilities, others with, you know, whatever the case may be. If you're thrown into another workplace and you're dealing with or working with a majority of a small section that you worked with before, you already have a head start and you know what to do and not what to do. Do you get what I mean?
Yes, I get
so
what
I'm
you're saying.
so for it.
Okay, Shivan, do you think it creates a safer and, you know, happier environment for employees to work in if there is an element of, you know, inclusion?
Absolutely. However, that is the ideal. The question is that the reality? How many organizations do you go to and they are providing a safe environment? How many organizations do you go to and they have inclusion? How many organizations will you go to and they will actually hire you because they're giving you a chance to showcase your skills and talents? It is the ideal. We can sit the entire day and talk about these things, but the truth of the matter is, it's not until we start to talk the change that we shall actually see the change. It's not until we go to these organizations and say, you know what, I may not have studied business accounting. I may not have studied this course, but give me a shot. Put me on probation. Take me through training. What very many organizations go through is that they always want a finished product. We always want to hire people who have gone through other people's hands. You put out an advert. I remember there's a time we actually talk about it. You put out an advert and you say you want 6 years experience. Where are you going to get the 6 years experience if you're not giving someone a shot at something they want to do? So again, it is the ideal, but it's not the reality. And yes, it does, you know, create safer place, you know, it's more productive. And trust me, organizations that actually execute and go through that sort of process, you will always find that one, the employee will always want to come to work. They will always give ideas. They are more happier because when you're settled and when you're at peace at work, you're more able to deliver and even be more productive other than being coerced into doing something. And I think that is where we all get it wrong.
The idea of happiness in the workplace is actually a good thing. And when you talk about inclusivity and bringing happiness in the workplace, it's guaranteed because at the end of the day, everyone is included. But is the work being done is the most important question. Because I mean, you could create a ground where everyone is happy, and then there's delays in she talked about decision making, which is actually really true, because you're trying to really compromise with everyone. At the end of the day, while you are compromising and trying to bring everyone into the workspace and trying, you know, to make sure that it's leveled, I mean, every disabled person is included, LGBT community is included, there's so many women included in the workspace. At the end of the day, the work needs to be done, and that's the most important thing. So it's okay. If you have included them, they talked about probation, yes, put them on probation. If they are not as competent when they're already in the workspace, then they should be, you know, eliminated.
Okay, we're talking about compromise. Let's talk about the disabled. Let's do an entire view of, for example, companies and organizations in Uganda. How many of them have ramps where the disabled are able to climb up and enter office? How many? Please,
That's
point
what
out
they're
that.
supposed to do.
Exactly.
That's what they're
And that
supposed
is
to
why
do.
when we're talking about competence and inclusion, also it goes back to management side. In your power, in your capacity as an organization, have you put there mechanisms where these people, these marginalized groups, these groups of people that are not well off, you know, that disabled, that are not able to climb stairs, have you put their mechanisms and initiatives where they're able to do their work as swiftly as the rest of the team?
Definitely.
Let's say for the people that are blind, you know, are you providing equipment where they're able to still go on and do work? Because at the end of the day, they are human beings and they can get the job done.
I
The
want
only
to say-
difference is they'll probably do it at a much slower rate than you expect.
That's not true.
Does it do-
I want to say, this is what I want to say. Again, I think we misconstrued or misunderstand the words in what it means to be inclusive and what it means to be competent.
Okay.
A lot of employers, when they talk about competence, they want somebody who is the least inconvenient to have to deal with. Do you understand? Because if you're going to employ people who have disabilities, then you're going to have to include ramps, you're going to have to include a disability parking spot, you're going to have to include lavatories or washrooms for them to use. Like, you're going to have to modify your structure to accommodate them or make their life a lot easier, and for employers they see that as an added cost. Do you understand what I mean? But does not mean that they cannot do the work well, cannot do the same job as you are. When you're going to hire, say, people who are blind, then you're going to have to include braille, you know, for them to be able to read, or you are going to have to, you know, buy software like computers and keyboards that have, you know, the braille on them so that they can be able to type on it. It doesn't mean that they cannot do the work, or they won't be able to, or they will do it at a much slower pace. The thing is that they just do not have the equipment and things they need to get the work done. But I would like to give a shout out to Ann Juko, and she's the MD for Stanbic Bank. Recently, I attended an event, and it was for women in Rotary. This was last month. And she did say that she is intentionally going to include people from marginalized groups and societies in the workforce at Stanbic Bank. There are now, I think, about maybe 8 women that sit on the board at Stanbic Bank, all female.
All female.
And then she also went on to say she's going to include persons with disabilities. They're going to make modifications to the structures of Stanbic Bank to ensure that they're able to comfortably and conveniently do their work, because just because they may be disabled does not mean that they cannot do their work. Also, a big shout out to Michelle Omwamtekere. She's an advocate and activist for persons with disabilities. So when you say competence, it is convenience. That is what the employer is looking for, convenience.
But then
not really,
because the definition of
competence.
competent is having the necessary ability, knowledge, and skill to do something. That is not competence. It has nothing to do with convenience.
Let me explain, Shiva.
But
because-
however,
no,
the
let me
employees-
explain. When employees are, for instance, how many persons with disabilities work here? Let me give an example.
I prefer to
You
give
do
a more
understand?
practical. I prefer
They,
to give a more
they say
practical
they
example.
say competent, but what they're looking for is convenience. Convenient. Come with your documents to show that you had an education.
Exactly,
So
and that is the
first,
bias
let
we
me
have to
finish.
break.
You're not letting me speak. What I'm saying is they say competence, but then they're looking for convenience. Come when you have already attained an education, so that your employer doesn't have to pay money for you to go and attain that education. Come when you are a person who doesn't have a disability, so that I do not have to buy equipment to enable you do your work. So sometimes I'm saying sometimes when they say competent, are you competent enough to do this work? They're asking, are you the most convenient candidate that I can work with so that I don't incur costs? That is what my point is. So I am for inclusion. Inclusion is going to cost us money. Inclusion is going to cost us a lot more time to empower people from minority groups that are disadvantaged. But I am for inclusion. Give everybody a fair chance and give them the tools that they need. Get me?
Okay, I do get you. Well, before we wrap up the conversation today morning, I'd like to read out to the viewer the essential traits of an inclusive workplace. Number one, having a voice. When employees feel like they have a voice, they are more likely to share their opinions with others. The next one is having a sense of belonging. An employee's sense of connection to their company is built on belonging, the feeling that you are part of an environment that knows and values you. Then there's also the sense of uniqueness. Just like an employee needs belonging and connection, they also need to feel unique among their peers, that their company cares about their individual strength and experiences. Then we also have feeling valued. I don't know, I think one of you mentioned that as well. When an employee feels that their voice and unique self are appreciated, there's a greater sense of value and satisfaction. Then there's also the bit of learning and development. Employees who have access to learning and development opportunities know that their company cares about their ideas, aspirations, and growth. Then there's also the bit of a collaborative environment. Basically, regardless of your role or department, a collaborative environment can help break down and silos and promote organization-wide inclusion. Then there's also the bit of access to resources and strategic alignment. So ladies, your final parting shots before we wrap up the show.
For me, I'm all for inclusion, and inclusion comes, it's going to cost money, it's going to cost employers money, it's going to cost us a lot more time to empower ourselves and free our minds from mental slavery, where we think that because somebody is disadvantaged than we are, they are not a suited candidate to do their work. So inclusion is going to cost money, but I am for inclusion. Give everybody a chance and give them the resources that they need to do their work.
I'm all for competence, honestly. Just, yes, I'm really all for competence. Let there be a level ground, whether you are disadvantaged in a certain kind of way. It could be physical. At the end of the day, are you able to compete with the other person? I mean, putting aside every other thing of, we talked about the lavatories and all those things, if they are in place, if all the equipment that you need as a disadvantaged person is in place, are you able to compete with the other people? That is the most important thing. So it's about competence, because at the end of the day, the work needs to be done, and it should be. So for me, honestly, that is what it is.
Well, my last remarks would definitely be, at the end of the day, competence vis-a-vis, inclusion, vis-a-vis diversity. I'm all for diversity. I'm all for including people. I'm all for training people. Do not wait for finished product, yes? But also, even while you're talking about inclusion, which should be the ideal, I mean, that is what it should be. However, it is not. The question should be, as an organization, are you pushing, are you moving ahead, are you forging a way to make sure that even when these minority groups or the marginalized groups come to you for a job, they're able to swiftly and properly carry out their work, thereby being able to do what Aggie says, compete on a fair ground.
There you heard it from the ladies, but personally, I think diversity and competence go hand in hand. You have to have an inclusive work environment, and of course you should employ competent people that are able to get the job done. There are some instances where competence won't cut it, and that's like going to a police station and you're a woman and you're explaining a rape case to a gentleman. They may not understand your point of view, but maybe if you went to a police station and sat down with a woman, or if you're a man and you sat down with a man and explained rape, they may be able to understand you in one way or another. So that's all we had for you today on Our Views. My name is Priva Elibaz. Don't blink.
Well, thank you so much for choosing to spend the end of the week with us by tuning in to watch us this morning on Sunrise at Sea, right from the hour of 7 a.m. up until 9 a.m. Today is a Friday, and it is time for you to enjoy responsibly. But also do not forget that Sunrise at Sea is not the only program that we have on CTV. Later on at 9 p.m. we do have the CTV PM edition, and later on at 7 p.m. we have Enjuba Egolobia. Not forgetting that today is the brunch time request party, where we showcase one artist, and that is the artist of the week. So keep watching CTV and don't blink.